computer. Okay. So welcome back. This happened again, which, now I know my poor computer. I mean, I appreciate it being around for 10 plus years since 2010, but poor little guy. Okay. So to begin again, I suppose, with Ethan Winters. Yes, it is the presentation of the lines and his affect. And I would just expect more in certain respects. So, yeah, the Mia situation when she's killed in the beginning, she's getting shot up and he's just cowering behind a table, saying nothing, doing nothing. And then only, I feel like only when Chris actually puts the killing shot in her does he scream out, and even that wasn't to my liking. But I guess I don't know. I expect more. There are times I suppose he's used expositionally or to like help you out or comment on things, which I feel like I would have better comments than that. He's walking across a bridge a couple of times, like, what is that? And I thought, just go on with your journey. And then there are other times that you examine something and only a line of text comes up rather than him saying, oh, I don't have, it looks like I need something to pick this with. So I kind of wish he would do that. But you called him a bummer. My word for him would just be dud. He's uninteresting to me. He showed more emotion when that woman died. I can't remember her name now, the villager, and over Mia, he's like, what does this keep happening to me? I was like, well, finally some emotion. But he also says really dumb stuff because she said, I hope you find your family. And then he says, I hope you'll meet them one day. And I'm thinking, Mia's dead. There is no them. I don't know. He is just unappealing to me. So I'm so glad that you agree with me. But then I just wonder, is he well liked as a protagonist? You sent me, let's see here, and I have to scroll through this right here. Oh, I'd have to zoom in. And I don't know, did you do this to me to get well soon? You're like trolling me? But look, I don't think they should have killed Ethan just like that. I liked him as a character interacting with the craziness around him. I was sad ASF to we all know what that means, to see Ethan go out like that. At this point, Ethan should be remembered as one of the greatest protagonists. Who are you to a twin Neo fusion? Poor Ethan, he died, and his daughter ended up being a weapon anyway. He would never have allowed that. I feel bad for Ethan. He was so clueless all the time. Well, that's true. At least he was clueless. Ethan is a small yet memorable protagonist. I'll miss him. RE fans towards Ethan salutes and cries. So you have found evidence that he is regarded well. Would you say that that's like a high percentage? And I remember reading, I'm pretty sure it was an article, though I did not go and look back for it, but I think the creators were saying like, we know that he was well liked and we really liked him. So we wanted to continue seeing him in his story. And I thought, what are you talking about? Is it just us? Are we just the exception and not the rule? And he really actually is well liked?
I get the sense that it's more mixed. And these fellows represent maybe the most extreme, although they are quite upvoted, some of these. Yes, the quote that you have seen was from Resident Evil Village producer Peter Fabiano, who says, the team grew quite attached to Ethan as a character, so we knew we wanted to continue his story arc. We wanted to continue to have players experience the game through the eyes of protagonist Ethan Winters, which calls to my mind that sort of split between fans and creators with, I can't remember the guy's name, I think it's Moriyama, the producer of the Fabula Nova Crystallis Final Fantasy 13 project, where it is canon in reality that he has a big crush on the main character, Lightning. And he has said in interviews that he wishes she was real so that he could marry her, whereas everybody else was sort of not too hot on Lightning. But I think with Ethan, it kind of flummoxes both of us because he is this dud. Um, but I think maybe what we're seeing here is people who can identify with him.
Mm.
The only really point of character that I've seen from him is that sometimes he can be kind of sassy, and that's it. Like in some of his little asides, he'll say something, or he'll have like a comeback after he kills
Yeah.
somebody, or something like that, which honestly kind of reminds me a bit of what I've seen of Resident Evil 6 with the Jake Wesker character, who was just like
Okay.
really sarcastic, but that was also bad. So I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. I can't think of he had a couple one-liners like, I
Mm-hmm.
bet you'll da 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 da. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, Ethan. I mean, I kind of roll my eyes at it, but yeah, I guess it's true, especially because you're like in this high intensity situation. You're like making these one-liners, these zingers. But yeah, so he does have, I'll give him that, he has maybe some personality. I'm trying to think of someone that could be considered a dud, but I liked him.
Mm-hmm.
That he may have been is it proper to say a vanilla personality, or is that like, that's not offensive, is it?
As someone with a vanilla personality, I don't think it's offensive.
No offense. A bland. How about a bland personality? Can you think of any like another protagonist that may have been pretty bland, but you appreciated them and enjoyed playing as them?
Yeah. Keeping in the theme here, I'd say Chris in Resident Evil 5, he didn't really go through anything that serious for him. I mean, I guess he fought Jill Valentine and had to bring her back to the land of the living. Spoilers. Um, but I would have liked to have seen more of I don't know, a relationship between him and Sheva, who's my
Mm.
personal favorite Resident Evil character, a one hit wonder. Sort of the Natalie Imbruglia of Resident Evil, I'd say. Um,
What's with you and Natalie? I was okay. No, keep going.
but I still I like Chris Redfield, so I don't know. I think that it's an archetype that I could work with.
Is that the game that he punches a rock?
That was Resident Evil 6, but it could have happened in 5, and I'm not
Okay.
remembering.
Carl Heisenberg mentions that.
Really?
He says something along the lines of, and I should say that here's the tag for, language and all of that stuff. Something about like that rock punching asshole when you're fighting him in the fields. Like he brings it up, which is hilarious because I
Wow.
think at that point in time, Chris would have been around in the, like Carl probably would have encountered him in the game. I
Yeah,
can't remember the exact line. If I can audio clip it, I'll get it. But
that's
so
fine.
that's like another little nod, like if you remember that sort of thing. I've seen that gameplay and that seems
Yeah.
ridiculous of you button mashing in order to punch that. I think of Jack again,
Hmm.
specifically in the first one, because in Jack 2 and 3, he actually does. Well, he had undergone some forced experimentation, so he's kind of a different character. But even Crash Bandicoot doesn't. Another silent protagonist. He doesn't say anything. He just, he's a bit of he's not the most intelligent marsupial out there. He's kind of confused what's going on. He just wants to um be with his lady love, but I love him. I mean, he's got his quirks, so I feel like there are duds that I have appreciated that may have lacked personality but have, well, I guess maybe that's a contradiction if I'm saying they lack personality, but they have quirks. But this guy, it was just hard. It was hard. I don't know. It was hard for me to get. I just had so many questions with RE7. I wonder what it would have been like had I played this game first and not
Mm,
RE7. Because I
yeah.
did have some major questions like, why are you doing this? Why? Because he had zero emotion in that one. It was so bizarre. But this one, it's like, oh well, it's a step up. But so maybe I'm biased because I played the seventh one, but that was sort of the point if you're following along in Ethan's story.
I'm glad you mentioned Crash Bandicoot because I found a listicle that was the 10 best silent game protagonists.
Ooh.
I just wanted to know their rationales. And with Crash Bandicoot, it makes sense because I feel like there's a difference between speaking verbally and communicating generally.
Mm,
And Crash is very expressive with body language, and that's a world that's sort of wacky and it fits, you know. And then in Skyrim, like that's a game, it's an RPG. You make your own story, and so you go anywhere and do things out of order. So it's just impossible to have like a character there. But in the case of Ethan, like it's almost like I think he fails as a silent protagonist because he does speak, which is
yeah.
sort of a logical, literal thing to say. But you know, he has just enough personality that it actually, as we've identified, it runs counter to the player experience, where you feel really on edge, and he's sort of trying to crack wise or just saying something that just lands with a thud,
Hmm.
and that could be sort of ruinous. And I think that part of it comes from uh, the gosh, what am I trying to say here? Oh my God. This happens a lot on a question we don't have answers, where I'm talking and then the thoughts just sort of fall away. Um, it's, nope, it's gone. That was terrible. I was sitting on that point forever and it's gone.
I'm so sorry. Well, if it
All
comes
right.
back, you let me know.
Yeah.
As a, well, now I'm about to ask you another question, so I feel bad about it. But do you think his lack of personality, as we see it, because not everyone agrees with that, heightens the personality of those around him? Like, does it actually do the game a service because you're able to focus on these really intriguing characters like Heisenberg, like Dimitrescu?
Yeah. I mean, maybe. I feel like their personalities would have been strong regardless, and maybe would have even been better if you had more of a back and forth with them.
Yeah.
I know that you talk to people like Heisenberg, but it's always the same Ethan, like, where's my
Yeah.
daughter? Like, it's just the same thing.
Yeah. Where's the trigger? It is like
Yeah,
Batman.
it is.
Oh boy. Yeah, so I guess we've talked about it, but just the comparison to other protagonists. It's just it's so easy for me to get on board with Leon and Claire and Jill and Carlos. And even, I will say with Carlos, I thought maybe I wasn't going to like him because the game is so centered on Jill that I thought, oh man, you're forcing me to play as this other guy. But I do really like him, and he's got some wacky lines too, but they're like done so well and it cracks me up. So I don't know. It's just poor Ethan. I guess maybe I do want someone who's capable. And even though he's capable in 8 or more capable than 7, it's
Mhm.
just I'm not necessarily rooting for him, which is really terrible to say because it's a father, at its base, it's a
Right.
father trying to find and save his daughter. But it's just like hard. It's hard to be like, oh, Ethan, I'm supporting you 100% of the way.
It is. It's kind of impressive that they start with this premise that is pretty easy empathy, and they
Yeah.
manage to make a pretty unempathetic character. And I think that capability is a key word here, and this is the point that I've forgotten. Because no, did I forget it again? Oh, no. It's that silent protagonists are, I think they're sort of set up to be, they have to be less intelligent than the player. And so he's always saying things like just pointing out really obvious things as sort of clues for where you're supposed to go next. He's like, huh, what do I do with this candlestick? Or like, you'd never say that, but, and so like, but that helps you as a player, but he just sounds like a dummy. And I think that that's kind of the devil's bargain, perhaps.
Yeah.
That was a great point. I'm glad we built up a lot of suspense around that.
No, that's really interesting. I never really thought about that. I guess I would prefer I don't need to be left in the dark necessarily, but games can give you cues just with like text too, that if you're trying to figure it out. Um, I think of Uncharted, if you get stuck, sometimes the game will prompt you to open up your journal or the map.
Mhm.
And then like a side character like Sully might say something to Nathan that, oh, what's this? Or they, if you're taking too long, they might wander over somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I wish they were on par with my intelligence. Like, we're in this together. Let's try to figure it out. And then if it's taking too long, maybe there's a prompt on something. But yeah, I see what you're saying there.
Yeah.
Okay. I in my notes I said OMG, not see his face. Does it border on the absurd? And so that's why I picked this image here. So I guess it goes to the I want to, or the ideal of I want to see myself as Ethan situation, but it gets ridiculous. I think I was yelling, was saying things like, "What, this is ridiculous," because there are two reasons. Number one, at the end of the game, did you see the end?
Yeah.
Okay. They did everything possible to not show his face, and the camera is panned out so you see him fully with his daughter in his arms. His head is bowed, and then Chris, you can see everything of Chris, but they're not showing him. And that's why I texted you at one point. I said, have you ever seen Mary Jane Watson's first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man? And so that was a whole thing because you never saw her face. And
Right.
Aunt May was always saying, Peter, I want to set you up. And so he just thought like she must be one ugly lady, and you don't know because you've got plants hiding her face, all of that. So it seemed like that, but it wasn't as fun. And I just thought, this is the climax of his life. He is giving his life for his daughter. Mission accomplished. Please show his face, but they didn't. It's ridiculous. And number two, I bought with some of the points that I accrued during the gameplay. I bought the character model thinking, oh, I'll be able to see his face. No, you cannot see his face. It is shadowed out. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So why? Harold, tell me why. Do you think it's bordering on the absurd, or it's just like you should leave it alone and accept it, Stella?
Well, it's possible he doesn't have a face. I mean, did you ever think about that?
You're right.
No.
It's a mold, but no one looks at him horrified when they first see him. So I can't believe that.
I we talked about the sort of the cipher or the tabula rasa type character where you want to be able to identify with him, and so he's not going to be talking and he's not going to have a face. I mean, this goes back to Halo, the original Doom. Although no, you saw Doom guy's face. But there's just a certain school of thought that if you it's literally just down to the face, because it's just so absurd because as we've mentioned, like we still know that he's like a guy, and we still know that he's like a white guy, and a father, and that's not everybody's experience. So even if we can't see his face, we still know, like for me, that's still not me. I still can't really identify with Ethan, even regardless of that fact. And then it's so deliberate here, where it's that sort of like Austin Powers, like hide the naughty bits, that it feels like a part of the text almost, that like they're making some sort of statements or metatextual commentary on this exact kind of character, but that doesn't ultimately pan out, I don't think, because what would the statement even be?
Yeah, I don't know. I will say, and I'll bring this up again, that there was a photo op. That's not what it's called. Photo mode mod, which was used at the end. And I'll give credit to that person once we get to that particular point. But you could finally see his ugly mug. And so I thought, well, I guess that's what he looks like. So all I know really is that he's a blonde character. But but from the photo mode mod, you can see a bit more, but he looks like a sociopath if you ever look up, because his eyes, he's got a bit Roman nose, as they say. And what is that called? Esquiline? No, aquiline?
Maybe.
Nose?
I don't know.
I can't remember. Okay. Anyways, I think it's bordering on the absurd. Maybe it's not even bordering. It's fully absurd. I wanted to see him, especially in that moment. That would have been the perfect reveal. That he was going to blow it up and you see his face. Why? I don't get it.
I know. It's much like what you discussed with Donovan about the Oscars, that weird bait and switch. It was the perfect time.
Yeah, it's true. Thank you. Oh my gosh, you listened to my show?
Yes. Well, I had to prepare. I had to know how to beat Donovan at guest appearances.
Oh gosh. Well, it's a hard one. So you said we're doing plot twists before the break.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
a good place.
So let's talk about some of these plot twists. I guess I can probably stop the share and show our
Uh-oh.
little faces. Did
I need to
you?
put on my face.
Oh boy. Let's see here. Ask to start. I have to ask your permission.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so there are some plot twists in here. At least I consider them. One, first of all, Mia not being Mia.
Hmm.
Ethan has actually died. He's dead. He's dead. He died at the beginning of RE7. I guess I'll go with those two. The other two are just some questions there. So, in your viewing of the gameplay, were you surprised about either of these things? How well do these plot twists work?
I think I was less interested in the Mia twist because Mia dying, I feel like she's already died. And so I was like, I just don't believe. I believed Ethan, his reaction when he said, "What the heck, Chris?" I was like, I don't believe that she's dead because he's not reacting properly. So it was all on purpose, Stella. Um, but I did actually like the Ethan twist that he's been a zombie this whole time, because I feel like that's what a twist really should do. It should kind of recontextualize everything and set up something else. And in this case, I mean, first of all, there's sort of a funny thing where when he's being told that actually you were mold the whole time, he keeps shouting, "Where's my daughter? Where's my daughter?" And it was essentially like the way a zombie would say brains, brains. And so, like, yes, he is a zombie. He's so single-minded in his
Yeah.
pursuit. But it's also, it's just, it's kind of, I don't know. Again, it almost feels like a gesture towards deconstruction because, like, seriously, like it is a guy who is like they're very single-minded and trying to do this thing, trying to find his daughter. But he's been dead all along. It's almost Silent Hill style. So I thought that
Mm,
was interesting.
that is true. And the plot twist, what's interesting about that, the Ethan dying, is that it's a plot twist that comes at the end of the second part, basically. It's
Right.
not a
Yeah.
plot twist originally, but you've been going on this entire time. Basically, you played all of RE7 and then 3/4 of RE8 thinking that your guy is okay and he was just killed by Miranda. And actually, no, he's been dead all along. So I agree with you that the Mia not being Mia wasn't as much of a plot twist. Like I was still surprised. And then that
Yeah.
explained why Chris Redfield happened to not be a villain, because I think everyone was going in from the teasers that why is Chris Redfield killing Mia with zero emotion? He's like, sorry, bang, bang, bang. So
Yeah.
that explains that. But yeah, the Ethan, like, oh, you've been dead all along. I was like, what? I was
Yeah.
pretty shocked. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed being taken aback with that whole thing. And then I think it explains so much because when I was playing, I don't know if you've seen this, but when Lady D has those Wolverine claws for nails, you're trying to get out of someplace and you pull a handle, and before you can complete the pull, she disconnects your arm with the hand. And that is not the first time, because that
Right.
happened in the first one. You lost your hand as well and you just reattach it. So you have to not only run away from her and try to get around her. I died in that section, by the way. It's just too close. You have to pick up your hand as an item. And then you have to run around again to avoid her and actually go through. And then he just reattaches,
Yep.
throws some medicinal liquid on it, and he's okay. And that was when I texted you as like the most ridiculous and unbelievable thing that it could happen, has happened. And I was going to have a point of like, is this too video gamey? Was that too video gamey? But then it makes sense, because at the time
Mhm.
I thought this is ridiculous. At least have some realism. But if he's been a mold and all of that, then it makes sense that he does have those regenerative powers. But I just wonder what other people were thinking, like, this is ridiculous. This is unbelievable. But then it starts to connect. So I liked that, the shock value, and that it answered questions and brought it back to reality. a bit.
Yes, I also really like that part too because it was more of that absurdity. Because I think when he attaches his hand, there's a ring of sleeve that he also attaches that kind of just fits on there. That was pretty good. And then he
Oh
just
my
puts it on the
gosh.
the alcohol. But
Yeah.
those YouTube comments that you read also, they were clearly in reaction to his fate. That it was like, oh, he's dead now, and that was really sad. So I feel like him becoming a zombie was also it makes him pitiful in a way, which might can recontextualize the sort of dudness that he's just
Mm.
so out of his element. That that's to me that's his only positive attribute is that he's just pitiful, and it is kind of sad, but not sad enough.
Oh boy. So the last thing is before we take our break is my question of, do you think RE7 and 8 is a duology? Can you
Mhm.
truly appreciate one so long as you play the other, or is it okay to just play one without the other?
Yeah, I mean, so this is interesting because we will have two answers that come from different places because I didn't play Resident Evil 7. And I think, like, story wise, it's pretty smart the way the games flow into each other. I appreciate that. But aesthetically, I think that's kind of where the clash comes in. So when you're in this European village and it's vampires and werewolves, and you flash back to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's just I don't know. That's the kind of like weird nitpicky thing for me personally that I wish if you're gonna have something relate, then it has to sort of relate aesthetically as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this was such a departure, which is why it was cool. But I don't know. But it's not a big deal. I think it does work as this sort of interesting sort of mini episode within a larger story.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were talking about that, sort of the jarring nature of going from this beautiful setting to, the Louisiana basically, that something that works well with the 2 and 3 remakes that I've been doing is that there are overlaps between the two. Like I was telling you how Carlos, you're in the police station and he does some things that you will see in 2. Like he blows up the wall in the shower and you see that as Leon and Claire and you don't know how that happened. So that's nice how there's sort of that thread and those two are really tied together because those stories are overlapped. I feel like it is a duology, if only because you can't really fully appreciate that plot twist unless you've played 7 and understood what he's gone through. And I think simplistically, I mean, it is Ethan and Mia and Ethan's story. So those two really work together. But I feel like you can play 8 and still really enjoy it and appreciate it. It's just like that particular element won't work as well if you don't have the background of
Yeah,
7.
I agree with that.
Yeah, which is a bummer because if you don't want to play, because 7 again is just really gross. So if you don't want to
Yeah.
play it, it's just unfortunate that, you'll be like, oh, wow, he's dead. How did he die? Who's that guy kicking his head in? Oh, that's how, who's Evelyn? Oh, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
But
man. Well, they offer you a little recap at the beginning of 8 if you
it's
want to know that
true.
story.
Yes. And they did. I was waiting to see if they would show Chris's face because
Right.
when we get back from our break, we'll talk about that redesign, but they didn't. So they were pretty smart about that. But yes, they did give that, which I guess maybe it was a hint that something big was going to go down since you needed to recap that because I feel like there's no recap in the other Resident Evil series
Right.
previously on Code Veronica. Uh I think that's all I have on this section. What do you think? You want to take a break?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I have to heal my hand, so that
Okay.
takes a while.
Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. Yeah. There is a now that you've seen the rest of the video game, you there's a video that says I think it's Capcom hates Ethan's hands and it's pretty funny. I mean, it's ridiculous because even after when the caravan or just the van breaks down and you're going through barbed wire, like you get cut right
Yeah.
away. And then the lichen bites off 2 of your fingers. And then it's just all sorts of things are happening. You get pierced when you first see Lady D and she holds you. It's
Yeah.
just like, what is it with him and his hands? It's a good question.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll take a break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about characters more. So definitely the four houses and the lords and the settings, and then some bigger questions at the end. I did have a song picked out, but because you keep mentioning Natalie Imbruglia, I think that I'll have Torn by Natalie Imbruglia. So when we come back, so that's what we'll do. We'll take a break, and this is IS's Radio Hour featuring Torn by Natalie. Oh.